Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Carlisle United, the team that's on the ball. Carlisle United, the team for one and all. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you play.
Here Ken Leisure with a pass so true to ball the stone.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the latest of our special episodes of the Brunton Bugle. These are episodes we've done which don't really sort of focus on events that are happening right now with Carlisle United. It's more like histories and themes and things like that. We've done ones, obviously, we've done an interview with George Tanner. We've done an interview with John Coleman about his book, The Bolts from the Blues. We've done about history of kits as well, Dan, haven't we? And a couple of us we've done so far. One Game Wonders, that was the one, wasn't it?
Yes, I was trying to think. It was One Game Wonders, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes. So this is our latest of our special episode. And it's a different theme altogether from the other ones, isn't it? So what we're going to do now, we're going to do a few of these episodes like this, and we're going to speak to different Carlisle United fans about it. But what it is, we want you to pick your Carlisle United 11. Now that can be either your best 11, as in the best players you've seen play for Carlisle United, or you can pick your favourite 11. So players maybe you weren't that great, but you really like them for some particular reason. And Dan has kindly volunteered to be the first up on this and get absolutely slated on Twitter when people see what he's picked.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I think some of our younger fans will be like, who's he? Who's he?
A couple of the names even I don't know. So that tells you all you need to know. But yeah, so basically the whole premise is that Dan had to pick his favourite 11 plus 7 subs and a manager. The manager's an interesting one to say the least, isn't it? But yeah, basically there was no particular rules towards it other than we had to have at least one player came through the Carlisle United Academy. That's the one thing we stipulate on this. But bar that, you pick whoever you want and you just start explain. You've got to explain to the jury exactly why you've picked those players. So should we get straight into it, Dan?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so let's go first. Now, goalkeeper, I mean, you could have had Kieran Westwood. You could have had, your Tim Krul. You could have had Adam Collin. You could have had all kinds of goalkeepers here. You've gone with Callum O'Hanlon.
Appealing to the referee, but once again, nothing came of it. Now that could be a good ball round the back. Support coming from Dykes, good crossing, good header. Oh, a brilliant save. That was a lovely move by Chesterfield. And really, Carlisle United can thank Callum O'Hanlon there. Top class save, top class move. A good bit of football all round, Andy. Yeah, it's a good.
So what's the thinking behind that one?
Yeah, well, some people think this is a bit of a strange one because he played when we were like bottom of the bottom in the early 90s.
Yeah.
But he was a bloody good goalkeeper. And as bad as we were back then, if it wasn't for O'Hanlon, we'd have been a hell of a lot worse. You know, I mean, he was a very, very good goalkeeper. He'd been at Middlesbrough and Rotherham prior to us. He'd actually made a full appearance for Ireland in a friendly, I think it was...
Yeah, they won 5-0 against Israel.
Yeah,
to get the clean sheet on his one game for...
Well, there you go, yeah.
So,
but no, it's just that, it was the time when I was, in just coming as a teenager, and he's just always stood out as a really good goalkeeper for me.
Yeah, one of those ones, isn't he? He had a very decent, lengthy career as a goalkeeper and came to us, and you do find that occasion, don't you? In the poorer teams, there's one or two players who just stand out as excellent, don't they? And you think, without them, how much trouble you would be in, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and that's definitely the box that O'Hanlon ticks, because, like I say, he was so calm, and he was collected, and, he deserved to be in the teams 3 or 4 years later that did well for me. Yeah,
I mean, he only missed one league game over his 2 seasons, didn't he? And funny enough, that game he missed was Tony Cage's debut.
Yeah.
A game, was it Halifax, I think he played?
Yeah.
In that game, possibly. So, yeah, he played 83 league games in those 2 seasons with us. Clean sheets-wise, he kept 16 clean sheets, but he was also involved in quite an infamous game, wasn't he?
Yeah, the 6-0 at Bury, where we were 6-0 down by half-time, which was the worst 45 minutes of football I've ever seen our club participate's a bit of a strong word because...
Barely turned up.
They were on the pitch. I wouldn't say they were participating for 45 minutes. The fact that the second half was 0-0, God knows what they got told at half time, but it worked.
I suppose you probably can't remember back that far, but was that a game that O'Hanlon actually played quite well in it as well, or was it one of those ones where even he had a stinker?
It was just the whole team that day. It really
just
was.
didn't turn up, Interesting career overall, didn't he? So like you said, he started in Middlesbrough. I think he was from Saltburn, wasn't he? Not far from Middlesbrough.
Yeah, he's from over that way, yeah.
Obviously, that lengthy spell at Rotherham, I think he made nearly 250 appearances for them, came to us, and then ended that second season, went to Preston North End. He spent a bit of time there. Didn't play that much in his first spell there, did he?
No.
Then he went to Dundee United and then came back down to Preston, and I think he was pretty much just like the senior number 2, wasn't he, for about 4 or 5 seasons?
Sort of into his coaching, a lot of it.
Yeah, and obviously he coached under David Moyes when he was manager there, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think, did he have the chance to go with Moyes to Everton?
He had the chance to go to Everton, and I think he turned it down because was he at Barnsley coaching or something at the time? There's something like that.
No, I think he was caretaker at Preston when Moyes left, and then after a short while, Moyes said, I want you to come and be part of my coaching team at Everton. Yeah. But I think he felt a bit of loyalty to Preston and decided to stay there. I can't remember I think he might have been Billy Davis, possibly, actually. He would have been the manager after Moyes. He then went to Barnsley and actually was under Simon Davey there as part of the coaching staff there. Nowadays, he's got a lovely old job there, wasn't he? A lovely, lovely old job.
Yeah, he's in America, isn't he?
He's in Georgia, in America, the Southern Soccer Academy. He's been the head coach basically there for the last year or so, I think. Interesting one, though, because they're a club that's affiliated with Chelsea, actually. So I think they basically, young Americans sort of play there, and if they're any good, Chelsea potentially take them off their hands for cheaper fees. But it's an interesting one there, Dan. 93 appearances in total over those 2 seasons for Callum O'Hanlon. And like you said, he's one of those keepers. Isn't it? It's like, I always look back and think Luke Weaver was a better keeper than people gave him credit for. It in a very poor team, we potentially would have been down comfortably in that 99-0 season. Wasn't for him, would we?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the defence then. So right back. Here's a name that a lot of United fans will know, and I know at least one person who listens to this podcast is besotted with this fella, our own mate Aldi. It's Darren Edmondson. You're going for right back. Edmo, a youth product.
Curry. Got any more with the cross in. Oh, it's going in the back of the net. Dave Edmondson gives Carlisle the lead. A hopeful cross into the box. Edmondson heads in the first. Oh, slack marking in the middle. And the ball just fell to the head of Darren Edmondson there. And it cracked under the body of Simon Farworth and into the back of the net.
Tremendous tackle there by Edmondson and then Aspinall. And a beautiful ball through to Darren Edmondson. He chipped it on the goalkeeper. And it's number 2.
Third goal from Edmondson.
And that really is wonderful play before. Darren Edmondson made the first tackle, a crunching tackle in midfield. Rodden Aspinall made an equally crunching second tackle. Edmondson continued his run forward and a beautiful ball through from Aspinall to Edmondson. And Edmondson beautifully chips the goalkeeper. As the goalkeeper went down, Darren Edmondson just lifted above him. A cool piece of finishing which should have been copied by his forward. But that was one of the best goals we've seen at Brooklyn Park for a very long time.
I did and ah with Rory Delap, but Delap did more once he moved on.
Yeah.
So he only had sort of the 2 or 3 seasons with us, whereas Edmondson had a good 7 seasons with us. You know, he played over 200 games. He scored a few goals. He made us a bit of money in the end when he moved on to Huddersfield, you know.
£250,000 pretty much, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite incredible, wasn't it? Yeah, so obviously he started out in United's academy. He was born in Coniston. Technically, he's not Cumbrian, is he?
No,
because Coniston was part of Lancaster then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there you go. He had a lengthy 7 years of United. He was a big part of that 94-95 team, wasn't he? And him bombing up and down that flank was what
the blonde curtain, the blonde curtains flowing in the wind.
It was curtains on either side, wasn't it? It was Jeff Thorpe occasionally down the left, and it was him down the right. It was brilliant. Yeah, he was a hell of a player back then, though, wasn't he? And he scored a few goals. Well, most famously that goal against Sunderland in the FA Cup.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, what a day out that was. But no, he just he sort of epitomised what the Paddock like to see in a fullback in front of them. You know, he got up and down the wing, and he got stuck in, and he looked like he cared. You know, and the paddock are a harsh crowd to play in front of, and you won't find many paddockites who have a bad word to say about Edmondson.
Well, it's funny you say that though. When he left, he obviously went to Huddersfield, but then later in his career he ended up at York City and Chester, and he played against us for York a couple of times, didn't he? Yeah. And he was quite happy to wind up the Carlisle fans in those games, wasn't he? I seem to remember. But I think people sort of appreciate that was the kind of player he was, and we didn't really have a problem with that. Post-playing career, he did pretty well in management though, didn't he? I mean, the job he did at Workington was incredible when you look back at it now. He got them into the Conference North and kept them there, and actually nearly got them into the Conference National, didn't he? Over a couple of seasons.
They had a very good couple of seasons under him, didn't they?
And he went to Barrow. Did okay at Barrow as well, but didn't quite work out in the end. He obviously got let go from there. I think he only really had one other management spell. That was a brief caretaker role at Bradford Park Avenue before he actually then turned up at United again, didn't he? As the head of youth academy over a few seasons. I think he had a part to play, didn't he, in the development of some of the most recent products to come through the youth setup?
Yeah, some of the lads who are sort of coming through now will have come through during his time, so he's had a little part to play, and he left quickly. We won't really mention that because this isn't the place for that, but he's actually now turned up at Parkview Academy, who the club have a link with, so he sort of swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, but he's in this team you picked, because you've gone with a 4-4-2 diamond in this team, haven't you?
Yes.
He's a perfect kind of player for that, isn't he? Because he's just going to bomb up and down that flank as much as he likes, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's the kind of player he was. All right, well, let's move to the other flank then, Dan. Your left back, you've gone for Owen Archdeacon.
Now Aspinall, McAlinden and Janssen are in the middle. Chips cross, McAlinden takes it on the chest. Now it's Holloway. And again Aspinall. 1-0! Owen Archdeacon! And Carlisle United take the lead. 3 minutes of the second half played. Archdeacon, the captain, his third goal of the season, but he's first from open play. First it looked as if it was going to be the header from Janssen, but it fell to Archdeacon. With an emphatic finish from close range, making it Carlisle 1, Gillingham 0. Well, that's just the start to the second half that Carlisle United were looking for.
Only spent maybe a season and a half at the club, but I mean, he made a hell of an impact.
What a season and a half he had.
He was, wasn't he?
I mean, there is other left backs we've had. A lot of younger folk will pick Zigor Arenalde, Danny Granger in recent years, but Owen Archdeacon had a touch of class about him for me. He scored a few goals. I know 1 or 2 were penalties, and he was more of a left wing back for us as opposed to an out and out left back. But what a player he was in that sort of 18 months.
He was a midfielder for most of his career till he came to us, though, wasn't he? I think he tended to play midfield for Celtic and for Barnsley. Came to us, and back then, Mervyn Day had a sort of 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, whichever way you want to look at it, formation that we played, didn't he? And he was a big part of that. It was him on the left wing and Roy Delap on the right, wasn't it? Just bombing up and down.
Delap having sort of come in and replaced Edmondson when Edmondson went.
Yes. Yeah, but effectively did, because he was actually a centre midfielder, wasn't he, Delap?
Yeah.
He had a striker, actually.
He played as a striker for a bit.
Yeah, to be fair, he was a striker when he came through the youth academy, I think. But then sort of gradually made his way back in the team, didn't he? And then back forward again when he was at Stoke to play centre midfield. He started his career at Celtic, and he actually picked up a title winners medal with Celtic in 1986, and he played more than I realised for Celtic. I thought he was similar to Halpin in that he didn't really play that many games, but actually he played about 80 odd games, didn't he, I think? And he did pretty well there. You mentioned he was a penalty specialist.
But
he wasn't.
He missed the biggest one of all, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. For the younger fans who maybe don't remember, he obviously was part of the team that got to the Wembley final for the Otto Windscreen Shield in 1997 that went to penalties, and he was obviously, as you'd expect, as our regular penalty taker, and scored a fair few that season. He was first up to take one, wasn't
he? Yeah.
And I feel for him even now looking at it, because it's the worst penalty he's probably ever taken.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I
it
think
was atrocious. It was.
99 times out of 100 he steps up, take a penalty there, and he smashes it at the back of the net.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
doesn't he?
I mean, that penalty shootout, we were 3-1 down and won it 4-3. Such was the turnaround. So.
Yeah, well, he's got Kagi to thank for that, hasn't he?
Yeah,
With
definitely.
his penalty saves, and Dino stepping up to take one of the calmest penalties you ever see as well when he was on a knife edge. Just a brilliant all-round play, wasn't he? A bit of Nelson experience as well. I didn't realise we sold him for $100,000 as well to Greenock Morton. That surprised me. I thought he went on a free for some reason because a lot of players didn't leave then.
I'll tell you something, you wouldn't get that sort of money from a lower league Scottish club nowadays.
God, no, definitely not. In a strange way, it's a hell of a fee to actually get, really, isn't it? When you look back at it. Very, very odd one. Since he's retired, he's sort of works with the youth setup at Celtic quite a bit. I think he's still working there now. His son was a player there, wasn't he? As well, he was at Motherwell, I think, and he's playing at the junior level in Scotland now. But cracking player, Archie. Still quite well fondly remembered. Not one player tends to get mentioned as much though, is he? Because I think he's, like you say, we've had quite a few good left backs down the years, and people maybe tend to overlook him because he was only here for a season and a half. All right, let's get on to centre backs. Let's get on to the big man himself, Dan.
There's only one big man at Carlisle United, the Gallic genius that was Stefan Punovaci. What a centre back!
5 blue shirts bunched together, waiting to receive. The keeper loses it, and it's in! Stefan Punovaci! Well, Neil Moss lost out. Punovaci was there to score Carlisle United's second goal. 63 minutes played. The Frenchman, his first goal of the season. It goes down as the goalkeeping mistake by Neil Moss, failing to deal with a free kick. Punovaci, the goal poacher. Not a role you'd really expect from him, but pretty effective in it.
First Frenchman to play for the club as well, wasn't he?
He was just Stefan, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we actually signed him is still quite incredible when you look back at it now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous because a lot of fans, some fans might think, he was playing in the lower levels of France and we got him from there. He spent, I think, the last 3 or 4 seasons before he joined us playing in the top flight in France.
Yeah. The wage Punovaci got, it was rumoured to be a couple of grand a week plus a couple of grand a week signing on fee, so $4,000 a week. I would say the equivalent now would probably be about 10 to 15 grand a week.
It was a lot of money. They reckon if you allow for inflation, he's probably our best player ever.
Yeah.
Because I think someone was saying that Jamie Proctor was on pretty much the same wage as Punovaci had been on like 20 years earlier or whatever. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, the difference. He started out at Sedan Ardens in France. He had a spell at Martigues and Guingamp. That's where United signed him from, isn't it? You can get there's Panini stickers you can buy of him on eBay, isn't there?
Yeah,
occasionally come because he was playing in top flight France. We basically benefited from the Bosman, really, wasn't it? Because I think that was a year before that. Maybe a year or two, and that's essentially how we were able to get him free.
The first wave of foreign footballers started coming over in the mid-90s, didn't they?
Especially at lower league level. You had your likes of Roberto Martinez at Wigan as well, didn't you? The Free Amigos. So he was one of those sort of players. I love this fact as well. What's his middle name, Dan?
Zeus Nagapa.
Zeus Nagapa. Why did we not know about that when he was playing for us?
It just sums a man up, doesn't it?
The amount of content we could have got out of that was brilliant. I mean, a lot of our young fans might not know what kind of player he was. How would you describe him?
Oh, sexual, silky, superb. There's far too many adjectives I could use here.
He was a powerhouse, wasn't he? He was just his strength and power and his ability to bring the ball out of defence.
But he made it look so easy.
Yeah, he
would glide out of defence with the ball. And if you saw a modern day lower division centre back glide like that, I'll be quite honest, you'd shit yourself and think, just get rid of it. But he used to just glide up to the midfield and then knock it off. It was he was class, absolutely class, and he scored a couple of goals as well.
Yeah, that's the only thing you'd say. Maybe he could have scored a few more, couldn't he? Because he only scored a handful for us. But I think he scored some quite big goals. I seem to remember. I can't remember exactly when, but he was a cracking player. And it's still surprised. Well, I suppose you say he still surprised me. He was getting on a little bit by the time he did leave us, wasn't he? I think he was at 29. So He wasn't getting younger.
No.
He didn't have a particularly successful spell anywhere after us, did he?
No, I think he did Dundee, Port Vale, Colchester and Scunthorpe, and he just sort of flitted between them for 2 or 3 seasons. But he actually winded up being, and I think he possibly still is, a football agent.
He's based in Newcastle, I think, out in the northeast, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he obviously goes back to France a lot, but he's a bit of a player in the football agency. I know if you Google his name, you can see him on...
There's a YouTube video, isn't there, of him and
and
Thierry Henry?
You can see a couple of things registered to him with a quick Google and that. So
yeah, good mates with Thierry Henry as well.
Yeah.
Interesting one, that, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Next up, we've got another centre-back, and this is a name that a lot of young fans will not know. I know of the name. I never saw him play because he was before my time, Dan. And it's a bit of a sad story as well, isn't it, really, this one? But he was a player, again, playing in a poor team, but excelled in that team, didn't he?
Yeah, and it is Nigel Saddington.
Hanchard had other chances, but on the frosty surface they slipped away. And Nigel Saddington, Carlisle's best player in the first game, scored an equaliser.
Saddington, for me, was just a proper, hard, no-nonsense centre-back. But he could play a little bit, you know. He would be an animal in the game. He'd probably get booked every week this day and age. But he was just tall, strong, with his ginger hair and his tash. He was just, if you had to describe a player back then, Nigel Saddington would be it.
You know what? I was literally just about to say, if you had your Apple phone or whatever, and you said, Siri, show me an early 90s lower league centre-back, a picture of Nigel Saddington would come up. Just Google him. He looks the epitome of an early 90s footballer, doesn't he? Basically. Yeah. And he looks magnificent in one of those old kits that we obviously talked about, doesn't he? Interesting career path, though, because obviously he's a Sunderland lad, isn't he? But he started out playing in sort of non-league level for some like very lower, like you think like Penrith level now, don't you? Sides in Sunderland. He was then picked up by Doncaster, had a brief spell with them.
To be fair though, what we deem as non-league over here, the North East is a hotbed for non-league. And
it's true.
As you'll see in like the FA Vase and the FA Trophy, it's taken a lot more seriously there than it is in a lot of places. So it is quite a good standard of football.
That's true. It's true, but it's an interesting career path anyway, isn't it? When you look at it, because he, like I said, he was at Doncaster. Then he left them and went back to play a thing for like Roker FC and teams like that over in Sunderland. Teams that I'm not sure even exist anymore. And he was then picked up by Laurie McMenemy at Sunderland, wasn't he?
Yeah.
His dream move.
Yeah.
Which you just wouldn't see happen now, would you, really?
No, very, very rare.
Incredibly rare. Didn't actually play that much for Sunderland, but I suppose that would have been his dream, just to play a handful against them at least. And then he turned up at United, didn't he? And he's a bit unlucky in that he turned up in a period where things were rapidly going downhill. But he was part of a team that did very well over 2 seasons, didn't he? Over half of one team, half another, didn't they?
Yeah, he was under the Middlemass era, and we should have made the playoffs. We got beat heavily at
Maidstone, wasn't it?
Maidstone 5-2 on the last day of the season, and it just sort of went pear-shaped again in the aftermath of that. But the sort of the 2 players that you would pick from your back end back then were Saddington and Paul Fitzpatrick, who could play centre back or defensive midfield. And
he was a sweeper as well, Fitzpatrick, wasn't he?
He was another who sort of frame and build belied his sort of technical ability.
Got a few goals as well, didn't he, Saddington? He scored a few goals for us as well from the
centre back. He took the penalties now and again.
He did, yeah. That's a fair point. But I mean, he even allowed for that.
He got the odd header as well, which is what, you know. If your centre backs can pop 3 or 4 each in, you know, that's a few.
Yeah. In terms of towards the end of his United career, it was a bit sad, wasn't it? Really, because he wasn't particularly old, was he, when he had to effectively retire from professional football?
Yeah,
because he was diagnosed with ME, wasn't he?
Yes, and I think at the time the club didn't really know how to handle it. Would be the best way to Yeah, I mean, obviously now the game's a lot more professional, and something like this would be dealt with a lot better. But I think back then it wasn't really dealt with very well by the club, which not the best from the club, but at the same time, not probably a situation that came up in the modern game very much. So
No. So obviously he was diagnosed with ME, and then he briefly went into non-league football with Gateshead. He had one season there, didn't he? But I think at that point he was like, there's no point in carrying this on, was there? So he retired from the game, became a car salesman out in the northeast. Sadly, he passed away in 2019 due to heart disease.
Yes,
so
sadly.
pretty young, wasn't it? Really,
He was still quite young when he passed away. But as people who went to games back then will say, what a good solid player.
Yeah, cracking player.
And he would actually allow Stefan to go wandering in this in this team of mine. So
yeah, he definitely would. I mean, he was 27 when he retired.
Yeah,
no age really to retire.
No, not at all.
So there you go. All right, well we've done the defence now, Dan. So there's your goalkeeper of O'Hanlon and your back four of Edmondson at right back, Owen Archdeacon at left back, and your centre back Stefan and Nigel Saddington. I mean, that's a strong back line, isn't
it? They would concede about 7 all season.
You'd hope, wouldn't you? You'd hope.
This is like Ultimate Football Manager, isn't it? You know, it's
the dream.
Yeah.
So let's get into midfield then, Dan. First up, Simon Davey.
But after that it was all Carlisle. An offside decision spared David Curry's blushes, and a few minutes later he set up Simon Davey for the equaliser, catching out the Sunderland defence and sending the Cumbrian supporters amassed behind the goal into ecstasy. It was almost exactly the same script as last season's cup match, but with Carlisle looking more capable of victory.
Bit of a polarising figure for some fans though, isn't he?
Yes, because he went to Preston.
Yeah.
But he came in 92 on a free from Swansea, and he was part of a sort of initial wave under Michael Knighton in 92 to about 95 when he left.
Yeah.
You know, he the first season where we finished mid-table, then we got to the playoffs and then we won the league. And he actually got transferred before we won the league, didn't he?
Yeah, he didn't get to play at Wembley either.
No.
Yeah.
But he was the captain when he came in, and he helped build the team, and obviously there was the goodwill under the beginning of the Knighton ownership, and he was just a bloody good footballer as well.
Proper box-to-box midfielder, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's the kind of player he was. I mean, I think if you look at the modern day team, you'd probably compare him to Callum Guy, wouldn't you? Except he gets goals, which Callum Guy sadly doesn't yet. But
speaking of goals, if you haven't seen it, just Google Simon Davey, Carlisle, Shrewsbury for the greatest free kick in the history of Carlisle United.
It's one of those ones, though, you look at it and they probably should have put a wall up for it. At least, shouldn't they, really? But they didn't.
He's just 35 yards out, he just runs up and he levers it, and it just flew in. I was in the Warwick Road end for that game, so we had the perfect view of it. And as obviously it went into the waterworks end, but he just absolutely levered it.
It's kind of like when people look back on it. I posted up on the Facebook group the other day the David Simonson goal he scored against Scunthorpe.
Yes, yeah.
Similar to that, but he doesn't sort of hit it with the outside of his, the inside instep or whatever, like Simonson does.
Full on the laces, on the levered it.
He just absolutely whacks it. As you mentioned, he joined us from Swansea. Interestingly, his time in Swansea, he played in the Cup Winners' Cup because they won the Welsh FA Cup.
The Welsh Cup, yeah.
And he played against Monaco and Panathinaikos during that time. Incredible, that, isn't it? As you mentioned there, he's a very box-to-box midfielder, chipped in with goals, but he was just all over the pitch. His energy was incredible.
93-94, he made the PFA Team of the Year, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Indeed. And he was second top scorer that season, just behind Reeves, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was the top scorer. He also scored a goal against Sunderland in the FA Cup, didn't he, I think?
He did, yeah.
2 seasons in a row, we drew with them 1-1 at
and then brought them back over here both years, yeah.
So obviously he left for Preston just before the end of 94-95 season, so he missed out on Wembley, but he had made enough appearances, hadn't he, to pick up a title win?
Yes, I think it was obviously it was about mid-February or something, because you didn't have the windows back then like you do now.
For all the teenagers listening out there, what they used to do is that transfer deadline was there was one a season, wasn't there?
Yeah,
that
it was like mid-March or something.
It was the third Thursday of March. I always remember that fact. It was interesting one to say. Back then, you didn't have Sky Sports News. You were sat there watching CFAX, weren't you?
CFAX or the radio, if you were lucky. Back then, Radio 5 wasn't really a thing much.
No, not in the same way it is now, was it?
No.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, obviously he went to Preston. Who did he play alongside on his debut for Preston, though, Dan?
David Beckham.
Indeed, he did. And there was a free kick given in that game. And Dave used to take the free kicks at Carlisle. And I think he said to David Beckham went up to him, and this cocky young lad on loan from Manchester United said, I'm taking this one. He's like, excuse me. He's like, I'll take it. And he's like, I think he was a bit miffed about that. And there you go. Beckham stepped up and pinged it in the top corner. He's like, all right, this lad's pretty good then.
Yeah, we'll let you off.
Yeah. He didn't actually play for much longer after that, though, did he? I think he only had 2-3 seasons there. He did win the title, though, didn't he, with Preston, the season after what it was?
Yes.
So, yeah, he had to retire at the age of 27. Back injury cut his career short. He coached at Preston's academy. Then he moved to a similar role at Barnsley and became their first team manager, didn't he? I seem to remember he had a famous FA Cup run with them, didn't he? Did they beat Chelsea, I think it was? Was it Mourinho's?
Yeah, I think it was Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah, I remember them beating Chelsea in the FA Cup. So he had 3 years there before he was sacked. He had 2 managerial spells in 1 year. One at Darlington, and then he sort of left when they were an absolute mess back then, weren't they?
Yeah, that's when Darlington were at peak, sort of blowing up, weren't they? So.
Yeah, so he ended up leaving Darlington to go to Hereford, but Hereford were much better, I don't think, and ended up leaving there after a short while. He had a few scouting roles, I think, after that, but he now finds himself, funnily enough, being Callum O'Hanlon's boss in America, doesn't he?
I wonder how Callum got that job.
Interesting, isn't it? It's the setup there, obviously they're linked with Chelsea closely, but if you haven't got John Coleman's books, The Bolts and the Blues, he talks about that goal against Shrewsbury with Simon, and Simon talks about his life now in America, and he said, like, it's just, why would I want to come back to England and manage and have the pressure? Much more. I mean, you can imagine it must be such a good life living out there.
Yeah,
managing. But there you
go. And having the tag of ex-professional in England probably carries a bit of weight.
It does, and apparently some of these pupils who work at the academy there occasionally show him, like they find the goal he scored against things. Like, is that you? Not really you? He's like, yeah. Thing to brag about, though, isn't it?
Yeah, too right.
There you go. So there you go. That's you've put him as a sort of holding midfielder.
Yeah, the holding midfielder, because the other 3 would play in front across. One on the left, one in the middle, one on the right.
But I think it's fair to say he'd be bombing up and down the pitch whenever he wanted, wouldn't
he? Oh, yeah.
Well, let's go to right wing then, Dan. Rod Thomas.
2 home matches in the space of 4 days produced 2 more wins. Rod Thomas opened his account for the season against Exeter with a spectacular overhead effort. Mansfield were the next opponents in a midweek fixture. Rod Thomas was again on the score sheet. His opener here was almost as special as his winner against Exeter.
The flowing dreadlocks of Roderick Thomas.
Oh, what a... I mean, he's one of those players you just love to watch because he just gets you off your seat, didn't he?
Yeah, if he was in the mood, woof, The
fullbacks were just terrified of him, weren't they?
Yeah.
Interesting, obviously, you mentioned the fact that his name's Roderick. Our fans used to think there's only one Rodney Thomas, didn't they?
Yeah.
Partly because Roderick doesn't flow or doesn't stand there, like, does it? But there you go. But no, Rod Thomas started his career at Watford. He was described as the next Pele when he was 14 years old, wasn't it? Because he was playing in all the England youth setups and he was apparently just an unbelievable player for them. But he never quite kicked on, did he, at Watford?
No. I mean, you do see that with quite a lot of players at that age. And what was Watford and England's loss was our gain, really.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned England there. Obviously, he played at England under 21 level. He made one appearance for them, didn't he? And it's lucky he did, because if he hadn't, then Mick Wadsworth might never have spotted him, mightn't he? Because he was part of the England youth setup back then, wasn't he?
Yes, Mick Wadsworth was in and out the England setup in various scouting and backroom roles. So
yeah, obviously he'd spotted Thomas back then. When he heard he was being released by Watford, he basically snapped him up for Carlisle, didn't he? And thank God he did. 169 appearances over his 4 years at the club, 19 goals. Just a cracking player. Well, he's got some great goals. I mean, it's one against.
I'd love to know how many he set up.
Oh yeah, because I mean,
either directly or indirectly.
Well, he wasn't the greatest crosser in the world, was he? Really?
No,
Because he's only a small player, quite small stature.
But
he could get to the byline, couldn't he?
Yeah, it'd be his run. It'd beat 2 or 3. He'd knock it back to someone who'd put it in for someone to score. You know,
he must have set a hell of a lot up for David Reeves, mustn't he?
Yeah. You
think back to it, but he was a player. He's just so good on the ball, so exciting. I mean, and bear in mind, like the Brunton Park pitch back then was not a good pitch, was it?
It was nowhere near what it is today.
I mean, today, having playing in our team today,
it's like a bowling green today.
He'd be loving it, wouldn't he? Playing on that pitch right now. But yeah, he just was one of those players, wasn't he? Who just really excited fans and a massive part of that team that won the third division title.
Yeah, and he was probably the first Carlisle player to have dreadlocks.
He would be, yeah.
It was part of the wave. You know, I talked a few minutes ago about, Simon Davey was part of the initial euphoria.
Yeah.
This was when we were on the crest of the wave in the 19 years. And 94, 95, we got relegated, but we came back up again. And, Rod Thomas was bang smack central to all of this. As you say, Thomas, Reeves, Curry, it's...
Just roll off
what would you give? What would you give for that now?
Oh, absolutely. He didn't play as much under Mervyn Day, though, did he, in that sort of second promotion campaign? Partly because he just didn't fit into the system, did he?
Yeah, well, as you said, when we were on about Archdeacon, Day sort of played the 3-5-2, 5-3-2, so
he didn't really fit in so much as a winger. I think he played more as a striker, really, didn't he? As a sort of sub-striker in those games. Ended up leaving the club to go to Chester, had a few more seasons, played at Brighton. Did I think he scored against us for Brighton, possibly? I seem to remember.
Yeah.
And then he sort of just disappeared out of the game, didn't he? He didn't really go to non-league or anything.
When I was working in London, I stopped for a few years in Harrow in northwest London, and apparently he was the manager of a Phones for You.
He was definitely managing a mobile phone shop, I remember that, yeah.
And I actually went in one day on the sole purpose of just shaking his hand, and he was on a week's annual leave.
Unbelievable, that.
Yeah.
That's just rotten luck, isn't it? Because I'd imagine he would have enjoyed meeting you.
Not as much as I would have enjoyed meeting him again. But...
Shook his hand and probably hugged him as well.
Yeah. I did have a retro Carlisle top on for the occasion.
Oh, brilliant. Right, let's move to the other wing then, Dan. We're going a bit further back now to a man I think anyone would say, like, if you talk about your Mr. Carl United today, obviously Andrew Jenkins is one who's going to get mentioned. But if you go next down from him...
This fella isn't far behind, is he?
Oh, absolutely. John Alpin.
Telford this season are not the Telford of old. A man short was too big a handicap. Before the end, John Halpin headed in the 4th goal. No glory for non-league Shropshire this season. What
a guy. What a guy.
First up, cracking bloke.
Yes.
He was obviously settled in the area, again, originally from Celtic. And the younger listeners just won't get how bloody good he was He was a proper, old-fashioned left winger.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely unreal. I'm trying to think of... I honestly think he would be top-end Championship into the Premier League if he was around today. That's how good he was for me.
I mean, I've only seen little bits of footage from when he was playing for us towards the end of his time, and we'll get onto it in a minute, but he was badly affected by injuries, so he wasn't the same player, but you could still see, despite those injuries, just how good a footballer he was, wasn't he?
I mean, he broke his leg 3 times at Carlisle United. One of them was the horrible incident by Brian Laws from Middlesbrough, hence why Carlisle fans have always disliked Brian, shall we say.
Yeah, that's putting mildly.
Apparently, one of them at Rochdale, he did it at Rochdale, and there was a rumour at the time, I've never known how true this is, but Liverpool were interested in signing him. As Liverpool used to pluck players from the lower league.
They did, didn't they? Yeah.
And turn them into superstars back then. And there was a rumour that it was all in the pipes, and Carlisle wanted him to play in a big game at Rochdale. He broke his leg, and the rest is history.
I mean, it's sad to think that would happen, but in a way, it's Carlisle United's long-term game. We've got someone who's been a brilliant servant to this football club, hasn't he? I mean,
yeah.
You mentioned what a great player he was. I mean, in his early time in the club, he scored a goal that a lot of Carlisle fans say is one of the greatest goals scored by a Carlisle United player, don't they?
Yeah.
He was against Blackburn Rovers, and it's one of the ones that's mentioned in John Coleman's Bolts from the Blues book.
Yeah, yeah.
And he beat about 4 or 5 players, and he picked it up on the left, beat about 4 or 5 players, and then smashed it into the back of the net. And it's a shame there's no real footage of that anywhere, is there? Sure, there probably is somewhere. I wonder if Blackburn Rovers maybe have some or something. I don't know, because they probably got a better archive than we do as a club. But it's one of those goals that people just still talk about now who saw it, don't they, and say, what a player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's not the biggest of blokes, Halpy. He's your typical sort of low centre of gravity.
It's like pint-sized winger, isn't he?
Yeah, but a drop of the shoulder, a jink, and he was away, and the ball was in. He was rapid, and yeah, the leg breaks maybe took a little bit of the pace over the years, but he
was a clever player as well, though, wasn't he? Because he didn't just rely on pace, did he? He was very clever on the ball, and he used the ball well. I'm speaking as someone who hadn't seen him play, but from what everyone I spoke to says that's the kind of player he was back then. Big part of the team that was obviously in what is now the Championship, was back then the second division.
Yeah. He came through sort of. We were in what's now the Championship. Then we had a bad couple of years where we got relegated from the Championship and now what's League One, and then finished 23rd in League Two in 3 seasons, which coincidentally were my first 3 seasons following the club.
Yeah, so I mean, you got to see him playing in a particularly poor team, but he clearly
classic example of a good player in a bad team.
Yep. It's funny, a lot of your players are good players in bad teams, aren't they? Tells you a lot about following Carlisle United.
They're either a good player in a bad team or good players in very good teams. There's no middle ground with Carlisle United.
Absolutely. So yeah, he had those leg breaks with us, and towards the end of his career, he wasn't getting as much game time, was he? So he went to Rochdale, had a brief spell there. Didn't really work out for him there either, did it? Then went to Gretna, I think, for a short while, but then returned to Carlisle United.
For a bit, yeah.
Returned to Carlisle United to be part of the football and the community setup. And I also remember this because my first experience of meeting Halpy was through that. I remember going to, it would have been out on the More Close Sports Centre in Workington. They had one of the football and the community,
soccer schools.
They had during the school holidays.
Yeah.
And I remember Halpy being at those, and just remember what a genuinely nice bloke he was. And, made you. I wasn't a particularly good footballer back then. I got a little bit better, not much better, but I wasn't a great footballer back then. But he didn't make anyone who wasn't a good footballer feel like they shouldn't be there, and that was a big part, wasn't he? And, he's a big link between the football club and the community even now, isn't he? The way he is.
Yeah.
People know him because people know. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Basically, people have got goodwill towards Carlisle United, and part of it's down to him, the way he treats people in the community.
Yeah, definitely.
He also had a brief spell as a joint manager with David Wilkes, and I'll say his name, but he wasn't really involved, was he? Michael Knighton was part of that trio.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, interesting. People look back at that and think, oh, it was a disaster and everything. But actually, you look back at it, we played some bloody good football on that team that went down, didn't we?
The worst result we had was a 4-1 win at Wickham.
Yeah.
Because that convinced Knighton it was the way to go.
Yeah, but even after that, there were some games we played some really good football. I mean, that 3-0 win at Deepdale over Preston, amongst others. There was a few others. I think, did we beat Southend 5-0 as well back then?
Yeah.
I think we possibly beat Bristol Rovers 3-0 as well.
Yeah, quite a lot of goals, wasn't there?
Yeah, we scored lots of goals, and we were an exciting team to watch at times. I know some people who generally say we played some brilliant football. Just defensively, we were a little bit of a shambles, weren't we? And ended up going down as a result, which is a real shame. We lost Janssen and Delap as well towards the end of the season, which didn't help matters either.
No, not at all.
So yeah, it's one of those ones, and he ended up stepping down to become assistant manager under Nigel Pearson. Helped keep us up in the long term, and he was just treated really shabbily by Knight at the end of that season.
Yeah.
him and I don't know. Did they get rid of Wilksey as well? I think.
I think he disappeared for a couple of years and then he came back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they both ended up coming back, and
Yeah.
Halpy returned to his role in the community setup, and he's still there now, isn't he? Which just goes to show you, doesn't he, what a great guy he was.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's Halpy, your left winger. Let's move to attacking midfield then now, Dan, and this is the name that maybe a little bit surprised some people, possibly, maybe not to others. Paul Proudlock.
At the start of the second half, Carlisle came back with a goal from Paul Proudlock.
Scunthorpe have conceded 2 further goals, and Scarborough may concede another here, and they have. It's Paul Proudlock who nods in that hopeful centre from the left. Unconvincing play from Mark Evans, who thought perhaps he...
Paul Proudlock, what a player! What a player! He should have done. He should have done more in his career. I think that's a fair comment. And if he was in the mood, he was unplayable. But he wasn't in the mood enough, without being too harsh.
Yeah.
But he could, if he put as much effort into his on field as he did having a pint in the beehive, he probably would have played at a higher level.
Yeah.
But that's how football was back then. And again, he's another who played in a really bad time for the club, 88 to 92, when we really were a bad team.
Yeah, like an awful team back then.
Yeah, I always remember a classic. There was a rumour he was going to Hartlepool in about 91 for £5,000. And a lad I know had a banner up in the Warwick Road end. We want Paul Proudlock, not £5,000.
There you go.
And there was uproar over that banner at the time because nothing like that ever happened, you know.
No. He nearly joined Crewe Alexandria, didn't he? And I think he says in his again, he's in John Coleman's book for his goal against Derby County in the League Cup.
Yes, brilliant goal.
He mentions that he had a chance to go to Crewe and he slightly regrets not taking it because, as it turns out, Michael Knighton didn't particularly like him, did he? I think they didn't get on. They didn't see eye to eye, let's just say.
Yeah,
it's fair to say. Not the only player that happened to be fair.
No, but not by long chalk, no.
No, but yeah, as I mentioned there, he scored that goal against Derby County in the League Cup, and they had Peter Shilton in goal, didn't they?
I'm just thinking there, the Crewe of the early 90s were probably a really suited Paul Proudlock because they were known as a football playing team.
Yeah.
You know, the likes of David Platt and what have you had come through them by then, so...
Robbie Savage.
Yeah.
As well. So, yeah. Let's go show. But yeah, as mentioned there, against Derby County in the League Cup, they had Peter Shilton in goals and Mark Wright in defence.
Yeah,
a couple of years earlier, they'd been, a year or so earlier, hadn't they?
It's Italia 90.
Italia 90 in the semi-finals. It's quite incredible, that, when you think about it.
But he went to Hartlepool for us, and then he went to Gateshead, but he was at Gateshead for several years.
Yeah, quite a while.
He actually managed them for the season.
Yeah. Well, he says in John's book he didn't really enjoy management very much. He said he liked the coaching side of it, but he didn't like that. To be sat in an office ringing other managers and things like that. He just didn't enjoy it. But no, he doesn't seem particularly bitter about his time at the club, even though it was a tough time. But yeah, it's one of those ones we'll have to dig out a few videos and stick them up on the Twitter page, won't we? Because he scored some great goals for the club too.
Yeah.
One of those players.
But no, and I think, like say, he signed in 88 when I was 10. When you're sort of 10, 11, 12 and you see a player running with the ball, you're instantly like, oh, he's good.
Yeah.
And that's probably the thing with Paul Proudlock that stuck for me because, you know, he would get the ball and run, which wasn't as much of a big thing back then.
No. I do wonder if there's any mid-noughties kids who talk wax lyrically about Carlos Rocker in the same way that you're doing about Paul Proudlock.
Probably not, no.
I think it's fair to say that's the case, isn't it?
Carlos Rocker couldn't tie Proudlock's laces in my eyes.
No, indeed he couldn't. So there you go there. That's your midfield completed then, Dan. You've got Simon Davies, your holding midfielder. On the wings, you've got Rod Thomas and John Halpin. And in attacking midfield, you've got Paul Proudlock. I mean, it's an exciting midfield. What I'm going to say is, it leaves the defence a little bit exposed.
Well, the defence is that good; it would handle it.
Okay. Well,
we'd have to... And think of the chances it would create.
Oh God, it'd be certainly exciting to watch, wouldn't they?
Put it this way: these two strikers would score 20-25 each.
Definitely, because let's get straight onto them then, Dan. It's time to talk about your attackers.
Yeah. I've gone for two goal scorers.
Yeah.
None of this big man, little man, anything like that. I went for out and out goal scorers. And the first, funnily enough, I had a crack with him this morning when I was coming back from the shop. He was walking the dog. And it is the one and only Mali Poskett.
Shoulder. Haig. Good play. And Poskett. 1-inch. McCartney and the goalkeeper left looking at each other, wondering who should have taken responsibility. But it was a good piece of play on the right by the fullback Paul Haig. He got round his man on the outside, a deep cross, and Malcolm Poskett, an accomplished striker in those positions, had no difficulty putting it away. He's got Rushbury to his left, Poskett a long way away on this side. It's his shoulder. It's his cross. And O'Riordan's coming in, and Poskett, yes! 3-1, Poskett again, from O'Riordan's pass, and Carlisle have gone 2 goals clear. O'Riordan did well to retrieve the cross, Poskett did even better to hook it in from there.
Mali Poskett. He's a name I've always heard of Carlisle fans talking. I'll say I never saw him play because I'm too young, unfortunately. But a lot of people rave about what a brilliant striker he was in the 80s, and you obviously got the chance to see him, particularly in his second spell at the club, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't start going to games until his second spell. But even in his second spell again, we were a poor team in those couple of years. But the one thing that stood out was Mali Poskett's goal scoring. Yeah. You know, in his first spell, Poskett and Shoulder as a forward duo was absolutely different levels. You know, I mean, we've had some good striking partnerships in the last 20 years. They're not a patch on those two, and that's no disrespect. You know, it's.
But you just look with the number of goals both of them scored. That was the key thing. Because you find sometimes in partnerships. I mean, if you look at Holmes and Hawley, Holmes didn't score as many, but he was a big part of that partnership, wasn't he? Whereas with this pair, Shoulder and Poskett, they both chipped in a lot of goals, didn't they?
Yeah.
Back then. What kind of a striker was he?
A goal scorer.
Simple as that.
Yeah. It was just... I mean, I only know about his first spell from talking to people, but if we got chances, Poskett or Shoulder was there.
Yeah.
If it wasn't one, the other was there, you know.
Well, he scored 4 goals, didn't he, against Crystal Palace in one game?
Yes, in the 4-1 win, yeah. And I would say, if he was playing now, he'd be worth 10, 15, 20 million pounds.
Blimey, that much?
Yeah.
Do you genuinely think that much?
You sort of top-level championship strikers that you think do the you know, I'm trying to think at the moment, you'd probably be looking at Ivan Toney at Brentford, that sort of thing.
Maybe like just a slight level above like Charlie Wyke.
Yeah.
Similar player though, and he just knows where to score goals. Yeah.
But sort of you're looking at Ivan Toney level, who's the current one, isn't he? Who's scoring goals and going to be next to move up. You know, he was that sort of level. He'd be top end championship, worth a go in the Premier League, and he would have scored for me. You know.
Yeah. Well, he came up through the non-league circuit again, similar to quite a few players we mentioned. Started actually out of Middlesbrough, but then he went to Whitby Town, and managed to earn himself a move to Brighton and Hove Albion from there. I mean, nowadays it just sounds crazy, doesn't it, when you think back to the 80s? Yeah. Who from Brighton is going to watch Whitby Town and sees this lad and goes, should be signing him? He went to Brighton. He had spells at Brighton.
That's how it used to happen, you know.
Yeah, it's true. It's crazy. I mean, he had spells at Brighton and Watford, scored quite a few for them, didn't he? And then came to us for his first spell, helped us get up to the what is now the championship. Yep. Ended up leaving to go to Darlington though, didn't he? It was a bit of an unusual one.
Yeah, and then he went on to Stockport.
Yeah. Then returned.
I think he only had maybe a year or half a year at each of those. And he came back here for the couple of years that I can remember him playing. And he, like I said, even though we were a poor team in those 2 seasons, the one thing that stood out was Poskett scored goals.
Yeah, Proper goal scorer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then obviously finished his career playing for Morecambe, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he did return to Cumbria, didn't he? He sort of settled in Carlisle, and he spent most of his life after football working at Pirelli's, didn't he?
Yeah, he's just retired at Pirelli not so long back. Like I say, he lives on the next street from me, and I often see him and have a chat with him while walking the dog.
Well, you'll have to let him know that he's in your all-time.
I will do. Yeah.
Definitely brilliant stuff. So there you go. Mally Poskett, 207 appearances and 66 goals. It's basically a goal every 3 games.
Goal every 3 games, isn't it? Give or take, yeah.
Which, with 2 spells at the club, obviously.
And if you think in that first one, Shoulder was hitting the same sort of numbers. You know, it just shows you how good a strike force they were.
Exactly. Interestingly, your second choice of striker is a player that both me and you love. Don't say his name yet. We'll get onto it in a second. But the links actually between him and Poskett are quite interesting, though, aren't they? Because they both had 2 spells at the club, and they both averaged about 1 in 3, didn't they?
Yeah.
And this man is the Maltese Falcon himself, isn't it?
Ian Stevens, the fox in the box.
A shock result at the Agra Stadium, where Kidderminster lost their 11th-month unbeaten home record to Ian Stevens' terrific volley. His second winner in a week, 2 away victories on the spin for United.
Stevens is clear, far right. Procus can't see him. The end loses out, but it's back with Gillap. Gillap advances on goal. Gillap! Still Gillap, it falls for MacLennan. Finds it out to Janssen. The ball frees for Stevens. It's going in. It's Stevens! The hat-trick for Ian Stevens! Carlisle United 3, Bristol Rovers 1. It's surely all over now. A tremendous goal. The hat-trick for Stevens.
Brilliant player. Absolutely brilliant footballer.
Scored. If you want a goal in the 6-yard box, Ian Stevens is your man. And I know people will be going, how can you not have Michael Bridges, etc. Ian Stevens was the man to score a goal.
Yeah, and let's be fair here.
In bad teams as well.
In four different bad teams. He scored goals in God knows how many times for us in poor sides. His career was a lengthy one, wasn't it? When you look at it, he started out at Preston North End, then went to Stockport County, dropped out of league football to Lancaster City, earned himself a move to Bolton. He didn't really score many goals at league level until he joined Bury. When I think he scored 40 goals for them, earned a move to Shrewsbury for 20k. Did similar for them, and we signed him for 100 grand, didn't we, in the summer of 97?
Yeah.
But he didn't actually start that season, did he, for us? Because he got ill, didn't he, when he arrived?
Yes.
The stories, isn't there, about why he might have missed out the first couple of months of the season?
Yeah.
But we won't go into those there.
No.
Yeah.
He's. I think it's fair to say that Ian Stevens was a little bit of a Jack the Lad off the pitch.
Yes, that's very, very fair to say, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a footballer.
I'm being polite here as well.
Yeah. But I mean, you say he's a 6-yard box finisher, but actually, go back and look. He scored a lot of goals as well, sort of within the rest of the 18-yard box. He was just a good finisher all round, wasn't he?
Yeah. He knew where the goal was. End of.
Yeah. He in that first season, where we got relegated back to the 3rd division, I don't think he made his debut till late September, did he?
And he scored 19, was it?
19 goals that season.
Yeah.
Quite incredible when you look back. And the season after was a bit more of a struggle, wasn't it, for him?
Yeah,
the whole team struggled to score that season too.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it was.
And then he left for Wrexham at the end of it, didn't he?
Yeah, only spent a year at Wrexham though, and then Ian Atkins wasted no time in bringing him in, didn't he?
Yeah.
To come back and
Scott Dobie, he seemed to play well with, wasn't it?
Well, he was almost like a big man, little man, because Scott Dobie's 6'2", which doesn't seem that big these days, does he? But he had a knack of getting on the end of things and flick downs, and Dobie excelled playing. I think Dobie learned a lot playing alongside Stevens.
Yeah.
He scored 4 goals in an FA Cup win over Woking. There's an interesting one I worked out from that quiz question we did quite recently on the normal episodes. He scored 3 hat-tricks for United under 3 different managers.
And he must be the only one to have done that, mustn't he?
I can't think of many others off the top of my head. There's not many that really come to mind. But so obviously he scored one for Wilson helping. I think that was against Bristol Rovers, was it? A 3-1 win?
Yeah.
Seemed to ring a bell. He then obviously scored the one against Woking for Ian Atkins, and then scored one against Leyton Orient for Roddy Collins. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he signed a 2-year deal when Atkins brought him in. I think he was on fairly decent money for the time. And when Collins came in, Collins sort of straight away wanted to get rid of some of the bigger earners, didn't he? I think also he wanted to get rid of some strong voices, but bigger earners as well. I think Stevens wasn't a particularly strong voice, was he, on the pitch? But he was a player who earned a lot of money. So I think he basically wanted him out so he could bring in a few players himself. Stevens didn't want to go. He was quite happy to be at the club. And we were struggling to score goals. And I think he
ended up just saying, sod it, playing.
Yeah, I think he said, look, I'll give you a game. And I think he played against Scunthorpe and he scored in that game, didn't he? And he was brilliant. I think from that point on, he basically played for the rest of the season.
Yeah, him and Foran actually played quite well together, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, Richie did all the running, basically, didn't he? Richie was running for days. And Stevens would just hang about in the 6-yard box. But he was a good player holding up the ball as well. He was a clever player. He wasn't just we describe him as a goal scorer, but he wasn't just a goal scorer, was he?
No, he could hold the ball up very well because he wasn't the biggest of fellas, Stevens.
No. About 6 foot maybe, I think, if that. But like a brilliant goal scorer. I mean, you can still see quite a few of his goals, can't you, on YouTube and stuff like that? Yeah. Go back and watch them because they are great, some of them, aren't they?
Yeah. And he's one of my favourite ever Carlisle players just for his goal scoring alone.
Yeah. He's one of those players as well, you look at it and you think to yourself, what would he have been
like?
What
he'd have been like. Yeah.
A good team.
Yeah.
It's just so frustrating. You think, you put him into that team that Paul Simpson had like 2-3 years later. Oof. He'd have scored 30 goals. I mean, Hawley scored, 26 goals that season. He'd have scored more.
Definitely he scored 30, 35.
Absolutely. He was that kind of player. Yeah. Brilliant striker. Really unlucky not to play in some good teams for us. But, always gave his all on the pitch. He wasn't a lazy striker as well. He'd do the running when he had to as well. But obviously, with his age, he wasn't going to do as much as someone like your Dobies and your Forens.
No.
Just the way it was. Well, that's your strikers then, Dan. So you've got Mally and Steve-O up front. I mean, like I said, they're not going to do much running, those two, but what a hell of a strike partnership, eh?
And how many chances would those attacking midfielders create for them?
Can you imagine?
We'd be winning every week 4-0.
You'd hope. But I still think probably more like 4-3 the way that you set up defensively in midfield, but there you go. So there you go. That's your starting 11 sorted. Let's move on to the subs. We're not going to go into as much detail on the subs, but we'll have a quick run through some of them. So
one or two of them have been mentioned as well. Goalkeeper Tony Craig.
2 penalties remain. Craig saves it. Great stop from the Carlisle United keeper. And Carlisle are not out of this yet. Superb save from Tony Craig, tipping it under the post.
I don't think he gets appreciated as much as how good a keeper was for us, does he?
No, I mean, he made over 250 appearances for the club, 2 promotion-winning sides, 2 Wembley appearances.
Penalty saves at Wembley.
Yeah.
Things like that.
And then sold for a pittance, wasn't
he? Yeah, I think he was either close to or nearly made the PFA Team of the Year in '95 as well.
Yeah.
He might have just missed out, I can't remember, but great player, just a good goalkeeper. The only thing that ever really let him down was his kicking, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, he wasn't the biggest goalkeeper, was he? I mean, he was only about 6'1", possibly.
He's about 6'1", 6'2", I would say.
Yeah. Not the biggest goalkeeper, but I mean, you go back and look at some of those games in that 94-95 season. I know everyone picks out Tony Elliott away at Chesterfield with his performance there. He was brilliant. But actually, you look at some of Kagi saves in that season as well. He's a hell of a goalkeeper. Really does not get the credit. I think he either holds or was close to the record for the most consecutive appearances as well for us, I think.
Yeah, probably.
After that game against Chesterfield, I don't think he missed a league appearance until he left in 1998 or something like that. Incredible run of games he had. Yeah, great keeper. He was our youngest ever goalkeeper for that appearance we mentioned previously against Halifax. It was only beaten 18 years later by Mark Gillespie, wasn't it?
When he came on as sub at Norwich.
Yeah. Interesting, I'm thinking about that, working out the timescales there. Gillespie might not have even been born when Craig made his debut. Because he would have been 18 round about then as well. So that's ridiculous, that, isn't it? But yeah, great goalkeeper. And you look back at it, wasn't particularly well treated as well by Curl by all accounts when he left.
No.
I know you're not Keith's biggest fan, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But there you Okay, next up, another defender.
Yeah, Frank Simek.
Yes.
I think Frank Simek is a massively underrated player.
Yeah. That first season, he was outstanding, wasn't he?
He was unreal, and it was once he had his injury, he was never quite the same.
No.
But I think that first season, he was championship level.
Yeah, and it was a hip injury he picked up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Things, and those are the kind of ones that you always struggle to recover from, aren't they, with players?
Yeah.
But I mean,
he had 5 seasons at Sheff Wade where he won several caps for the USA.
Yeah.
This is a top quality player.
Came through Arsenal's academy as well, didn't he? So
yes.
Shows what you need to know. And I tell you what as well, because I was working at the club back then, generally one of the nicest blokes you could want to meet as well.
So I believe, yeah.
Very, very typical in the way, Americans are brought up to be, very well mannered and, really, really genuinely nice bloke. And, when you want him to do interviews or like player appearances, he never once grumbled about it. He just got on with it. After he left us, though, after 3 seasons, he seemed to disappear out of the game. I think he went out to, was it Vietnam or something
Vietnam
like
and Thailand or somewhere like that. And he just literally disappeared. And we've tried searching for him on Google, but there's not much out there.
No, nothing much to find about him. Really sad that, really. But like I said, a great player in those 3 seasons. And it's one of those ones when you sign him, you look at him, you thought, how the hell have we managed to pull this one off? Because he should have been playing at championship level easily.
Yeah.
The kind of player he was. Okay, another defender, Dan.
Yeah,
Dan.
I've gone for Danny Granger at left back. Probably the only player of recent years who deserves to be in this.
Yeah.
Not just for his appearances, but as a local lad, he got what the club is.
Yeah.
The clean up after the floods, etc. He was always helping in the community.
He was a good captain. He was a really good captain, wasn't he?
Danny Granger was a decent football player with a little bit more pace. I don't think he'd have been anywhere near us.
Oh God, no. If he had a bit more pace as well, he probably wouldn't have been let go by our academy when he was 16.
No,
gone to Gretna,
no.
would he? That's a simple fact. He went to Gretna. So obviously he actually started out in the Carlisle Academy. He was let go at 16, joined Gretna. I had a brief spell at Brecon City on loan, I think, from them. But he was
like that. Yeah,
he was there when they were just joining the Scottish leagues, weren't they? Really?
Yeah.
Just starting to build up and. Went to a few other clubs, ended up at Hearts, won the Scottish Cup at Hearts, didn't he?
He's a legend at Hearts.
Yeah, he didn't play there that long. He only made like 80 odd appearances, I think, at Hearts.
Yeah,
they love him and scored a penalty in the final. Was it against Hibs? Was that the 5-0?
Absolutely hammered them, yeah.
5-0 win over Hibs, so he's loved for that reason. Had another couple of Scottish clubs, and then maybe it's one, I say it's actually 2 technically, isn't it, because of Workington, but joined his one English club, and that was us. And he was a great player there, wasn't he? I mean, some of the goals he scored as well, just unreal.
Yeah, and the thing that's not talked about, he had a cracking crossfield pass on him.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch games from a couple of years back, the number of times the ball would go out to Granger and he'd just swing a 60-yard crossfield to the right wing.
And that helped us a lot because we could switch play so quickly and so accurately.
Yeah.
That's the kind of player he was.
Yeah.
He's just a battling left back. I mean, if you're going to pick your favourite Granger goal, which would it be?
Oof, that Newport one was good, wasn't it?
It was good. It was the last goal he scored for us as well, actually, wasn't it? I seem to remember. For me, it's a close tie between the one against Portsmouth with his right foot, which, I mean, for a player who's so predominantly left footed, to hit it from 25, 30 yards into the top corner of his right foot. An equaliser in the last minute. And the other one, a game that both you and me were at, his free kick against Burton.
Oh yeah, that was a nice one.
Because we were behind the opposite goal, weren't we? I think you might be on the side where you're in the seats. I can't remember.
No, I'd come over into the terrace.
Well, he hit it, and the thing is as well, it was about in the second minute, wasn't it? And he was quite out wide left actually. When you look back at it, he wasn't like quite just to the right of the D. He was probably more in line with the 18-yard line, wasn't it? From what I remember.
Yeah.
And he just smashes it over the wall and into the back of the net. It's a brilliant free kick. If you haven't seen it before, go back and watch it because it's just an incredible hit. But yeah, great play, Danny Granger. Doing pretty well as Workington manager as well, being very unlucky with the 2 seasons that have been abandoned.
Very unlucky.
You've got to think one day, possibly, he's going to end up Carlisle United manager, surely.
It wouldn't be the biggest surprise, would it?
Yeah, it's one of those ones as well, even though he's only been in non-league football, because he's done so well and he's a local lad and knows the club, he probably could easily step up from Workington straight to Carlisle, I think. One of those ones, isn't it? Next up, a defender. You're not going to talk much about him because I want to talk about him in mine because he's blatantly going to be in my team. But go on, let's talk about the great man.
The great man, Dino.
Dean Walling, who was to emerge as the supporters player of the year, picked up a few early season votes with United's second.
Dean Walling. Yeah, just not the greatest footballer that's ever played for us, but you know, the heart he had as a centre back, the way he worked,
the goals he scored, the way he got fans, and the fact that he changed his career, because he was a striker when he joined us, a striker who didn't score many goals, to be fair, but he changed himself into a goal scoring centre back, didn't he? And what a move that was!
I mean, just complete accident move, but genius, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah. Like I said, we won't mention him too much because I know he'll be in your team. So
he's captain, player manager, whatever he wants to be. Quite frankly, in my team. There you go. So there you go. Dean Walling, one of the defenders. Next up, midfielder Steve Hayward.
Again, Carlisle outnumber the Chester defence if they can move it quickly. Thomas faced by Fisher. Steve Hayward from 30 yards. Great goal there. Superb effort. And they're running riot here tonight.
Yeah, the man who came in to replace Simon Davey, who's in my first 11.
Yeah.
It was a toss of a coin between these two, to be quite honest, because they were both bloody good midfielders for us. Hayward has the honour of being the first captain to lift a trophy for us at Wembley.
Yeah.
And, you know, Fulham made a ridiculous offer for him.
Yeah.
And we couldn't say no, could we?
Yeah, he wasn't going to turn that down because people might not realise, but because obviously people now look at Fulham in the Premier League and, you know, all the big money they've had from...
when we mentioned earlier about the sort of wages that Punavachi was on, that's similar to what they're being offered to Hayward from Fulham.
That's what Fulham were paying every player basically back then, essentially. But basically, Fulham had been a big team sort of in the 60s, 70s, hadn't they? They dropped down the leagues. They were at our level, at third division level, for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And then Mohamed Al Fayed bought them, didn't he? And he just threw money at it. Brought Kevin Keegan in as manager, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, Paul Bracewell, Paul Pasquisolido,
Barry Hales.
Yeah.
Players like that. I mean, they were a good team, to be fair. Like they were a good team, and famously,
the Hammerdus won Easter Monday, was it 5-0? And
yeah,
the aim off because it should have been about 10-0.
Day and night, that wasn't it? Basically. But was that the same season though, where we beat them in the home game?
I think it was. Yeah,
Kevin Keegan got some dog's abuse from the home fans. I think I seem to remember that one. Yeah, but there you go. But yeah, so great midfielder, scored a lot of goals. Still a popular person from
and another box to boxer like Davey was really. Hence why they were toss of a coin stuff.
Absolutely, but there you go. Okay, next up, I mean, this fella's just a cult hero, isn't he? And the very definition of cult hero for Carlisle United fans, Warren Aspinall.
Yeah, Warren Aspinall sumo.
Jansen heads on. Aspinall spins away. Oh yes, he scored a second. Oh my word! 2 goals in 4 minutes to Carlisle United. And 2 beautifully taken goals. The second from Warren Aspinall, on top of one from Andy Cousins. The slightest lapse in concentration, and he made Spurs pay.
If he was in the mood, he was the best player on the pitch. End of discussion.
Best player in the division.
I once was in Buskers on a Friday night.
There we go.
Talking to him at the bar. He was absolutely hammered, and then we saw him walking back to his digs with a kebab at 2 a.m. Came up, shook our hands. I enjoy the match tomorrow, lads. I'll score a goal for you. Well, he didn't score 1. He scored 2 and absolutely ran the show.
Yeah.
And me and my mate were at the match, hungover. And we're just thinking, how can he do that? Because he was drinking twice as fast as us.
He's just the kind of player, wasn't he? I mean, he should have played at a much higher level for a lot longer, shouldn't he?
Yeah.
Comfortably. I mean, I didn't realise this. He was at one point Aston Villa's record signing.
Yes. Yeah.
Paid 300 odd grand, didn't they, for him from Everton?
But he liked his drinking and his gambling a little bit too much, and it actually turned into quite a sad episode because he's as we know he did debate trying to take his life sort of thing. It was subject to documentaries, which I'm sure will be on YouTube somewhere, which are definitely worth a watch. But when he was in the mood, what a player.
Just incredible, wasn't he? And it's good. It's fantastic that he's turned his life around as well. Now. He works, I think, for like Sainsbury's or someone, doesn't he, in the depots, and he does a lot of commentary, doesn't he, and a bit of scouting as well, so he keeps involved in the game.
And if again we talk about Googling, YouTubing goals, look for his goal against Brighton.
Oh my word!
When we were in the Eddie Stobbart kit,
he
runs 2/3 of the pitch and just slots it home coolly. It's brilliant goal.
That's the kind of player he was on his day. He could do that. And I mean, you look at, he got the nickname Sumo for obvious reasons because he carried a little bit extra timber. I mean, the nearest thing I can think of, I mean, you just don't see that these days because players are just super fit, aren't they? All Football League players are just like, they're just prime athletes. The nearest thing I can think to it in recent years was probably Anthony Gerrard, maybe, for us, was carrying a bit extra, but that was the kind of, he was quite a big, stocky player, wasn't he, really? You just don't.
I don't think there's anyone like him.
No, these days,
he was a bit of a maverick, wasn't he?
No, exactly. And like I said, what a player he was in his day.
The modern game would find you out now if you were in his physique, shall we say?
Yeah, he probably would. He'd probably have to work a bit hard and keep himself in better shape. Whether he would do that or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, and one of the biggest shames is that he came towards the end of the 94-95 season. I think he was on loan at first, wasn't he, from Bournemouth? And unfortunately, he'd already played for Bournemouth in the Auto Windscreen Shield, hadn't he? So he couldn't play at Wembley.
Yeah, he couldn't play.
And you do wonder if he could have played in that game, what a difference he would have made in that match.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he had, like I said, he had the ability to play at a much higher level. I mean, he played for Everton and Wigan and Everton, Aston Villa, Portsmouth. Yeah, he was a bloody good footballer. Just all round good player.
Yeah.
Finally, you've got one striker on your bench. We've already mentioned him briefly before, haven't you? But I mean,
and I have a feeling he may feature. I think he'll feature in yours possibly.
Yeah, I imagine. So.
Yeah, Michael Bridges.
Will Murray pick it up? He will. Through to Bridges. This should be. It is. Good grief! I thought we were going to have to wait till next Christmas for that. Michael Bridges in the 80th minute.
I mean, we only got him because of his injuries, didn't we? Let's get straight to the point here. If he hadn't had those bad injuries, he never would have got anywhere near playing for Carl United.
Oh no, nowhere near. But fortunately, it was our gain, wasn't it?
I mean, just his ability on the ball as well, and. The thing is, as well, in games, there'd be times when actually you look back at it, he'd switch off for a little bit and he wouldn't really do much. But then the ball would come to him and he'd just
light up, wouldn't he?
Yeah. I mean, the best example is that goal against Darlington when we took 4,500 fans to Reynolds Arena. He gets half down by one of their players. He's whinging about it to the ref, sat on the floor. We win the ball back. He slowly gets to his feet. The ball's played to him. And he basically just a little quick step over, beats one man and fires it into the bottom corner. And you just think, like, no other player for us could have done that, could they?
Yeah, if there's one thing that would define Bridges at Carlisle, it's the volley at Northampton.
Oh, it just, when you look at it, because Kyle Hawley gets flat out knocked out, basically, by their defender. Yeah. And it comes to Bridges, and he sees the keeper off his line, and he thinks, like, I'm having a go here.
It's just sublime, isn't it?
It's a volley from about 30 yards over the keeper. It's just, I mean, again, you can see that on YouTube. Just go and watch it. It's what a goal it is. And I always remember that night because Colin Calderwood still tried to claim, even though we beat them 3-0, that they were the better side.
Yeah, right on.
And they weren't. They just weren't. And he also had his second spell was on loan after because he left to go to Hull City, and I think people were a bit unhappy at the time, but you could understand why he did it, couldn't you? Because it was the best chance he had probably to get playing in the Premier League.
Too good for us, wasn't he?
Yeah, too good for us. Chance to play in the Premier League. And he got that chance. He didn't play much for them in the Premier League, but he still got that chance. Came back on loan, he just wasn't quite the same player, was he? Still scored like 8 goals that season, even though he only played about 25 games.
Yeah.
So he was still a good player for us. But I think we maybe could have got him permanently, but I think he always had in the back of his mind, I think his agent had sounded out the chance to move to Australia, hadn't he? And,
yeah.
I mean, come on. The Solway Coast or the Gold Coast, which one are you going for?
Solway.
Of course. But
I like the chips and ice cream.
Oh, well, it's a fair point, actually. You know, you talk to me here, a connoisseur of 20-mans. It would be the Solway for me. But no, I mean, he's living the dream out there, is in Australia. Absolutely living the dream in Australia right now.
Yeah.
Fair play to him. All right, well, let's get on to your manager. Come on, explain this one to me. Keith Mincher.
It's a bit of a joke, this one, but the enigma that was Keith Mincher. For those that don't know, he was appointed our manager. Basically took a couple of training sessions and then
sod this.
Sod this, I'm going. So he was unbeaten. We didn't concede under him. Didn't do much else, but...
Because he came in after Pearson, didn't he? So Pearson left.
Yeah,
We appointed him that summer because Martin Wilkinson was chief scout, wasn't he, still at that point?
Yeah.
And Wilkinson, you know what, as a poor manager he was, found some bloody good players for us, actually. He was a hell of a good scout. Yeah. He knew how to scout players. Mincher then walked out, and rather than actually trying to find a proper manager, Knighton just panicked and he went, Martin, you have the job. And we re-signed Paul Baker as a player coach. So, yeah.
But no, joking apart, away from Keith Mincher, I would probably go... It'd be a toss-up between Wadsworth or Day.
Yeah.
Because they both had league-winning, league-winning and promotion-winning teams.
Yeah, two great managers. And it's always interesting that Day never managed anywhere else after us, but it's one of those ones, isn't it? Maybe it just wasn't for him in the end. Because he left because seemingly Knighton wasn't very happy with how much press he was getting himself, wasn't he? Because he used to do his radio... It's mad to think this back at... Younger fans won't realise this, but Mervyn Day used to do a phone-in, didn't he, on Radio Cumbria?
Yeah.
Talking about football. Was it on a Friday night before the games?
Possibly, yeah.
I can't seem to remember, but he used to do a phone-in and talk to the fans about, not just about Carlisle United, but football generally as well, didn't he? He was quite forward-thinking in that sense, really, wasn't he?
Yeah.
When you look at it. But I don't think Knighton was ever very happy with him doing that. So
no.
There you go. So there you go, Dan. That's your team. So let's quickly run through it again. So in net, you've got Callum O'Hanlon, right back, Darren Edmondson, left back, Owen Archdeacon. Your two centre-backs are Nigel Saddington and Stefan Ponavacci. In midfield, you've got holding midfielder, or box-to-box midfield, if you want to call him that, Simon Davey. Attacking midfielder, Paul Proudlock. On the wings, you've got Rod Thomas and John Halpin. And up top, you've got Mally Poskett and Ian Stevens. On the bench, Tony Ciggs, your goalkeeper. And then obviously you've got Frank Simek, Danny Granger, Dean Walling. Midfielders, Steve Hayward and Warren Aspinall. And your attacker is Michael Bridges. I mean, not a bad
bench, that, is it?
No, I mean, God, some people will put all of those in their starting 11.
Yeah.
I'd probably put a lot of those in my starting 11.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's your team. Dan, thanks for sharing that one with us. I do appreciate. I mean, you did pick your best 11, didn't you? Rather than your favourite.
Yes.
I'm going to go for my favourites. So there'll be a couple in there. People are like, why the hell have you put him in there? It's not necessarily because they're good players. I just generally like them. Because I know my best 11 would have some players that I don't particularly like.
I've got a feeling I can guess who your left back is.
Go on.
Based on that. I'm not going to say it until it's on.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'll have to wait and see. Because, well, it'll be interesting to see. Because, I mean, you were saying to me before, if you were picking your favourite 11, who would you have had in there? A couple who you might have left out?
I would have had Stuart Whitehead in because he was a mate of mine while he was at the club, and he was a bloody good defender in a bad team again.
Yeah. It's a fair point, yeah. Great one, that one. Dan, thanks for joining me. It's been nice to have a good chat about this. Go a bit down memory lane.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll do mine sometime in the near future as well. We'll do one with Mike as well because he's got a different viewpoint because he obviously only started following in the sort of early to mid noughties, didn't he? Because he's a bit younger than both of us. And then what we'll do is we'll get a few fans, or we might maybe get a few people on.
Maybe something to do over the summer. Get
absolutely.
Two or three fans on in an episode, 20 minutes each or something.
Yeah, definitely. And if you've got any comments about Dan's 11 when we put it up, we'll stick it up on Twitter. If you want to,
mine's more for the older fans a bit.
Yes, but not so much for some of the younger fans. We'll stick it up there. So you find us at Brunton Beagle on Twitter. We'll put that up there. And if you want to email us with anything, bruntonbeagle@gmail.com. And as usual, remember you can subscribe to the podcast on Acast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that does like a podcast app. Just search for Brunton Beagle and you'll find us there. And that's it, Dan. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back soon for another episode. And up the Blues.
Up the Blues.